crystal to the every Monday, and then you'll know. J to the crystal to the guess every way, talk about everything. J to the crystal to the J to the crystal to the J to the crystal to the tune in to the best drunk talk show. J to the crystal to the every Monday, and then you'll know. J to the crystal to the guess every way, talk about everything. The best drunk talk show every Monday, and then you'll know.
Hey, you guys, I'm finally back after a long needed break from interviewing so many business owners, but I'm back, and today we're talking about healing past your trauma and sharing your story to inspire others. So if you didn't catch the title, I'm interviewing another author. So you guys, today I'm bringing to the stage is Miss Tina, and the name of her book is called Fancy Prison. I mean, like she's talking about prison. No. So, Miss Tina, please tell me your story. And before she tells your story, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video and share us. That's all I need you to do, guys.
Well, hi, hey, Crystal. It's so great to be here in my pajamas, although we had to, I had to get on my microphone here, so I'm feeling like, oh, this is a little interesting of a setup. But yeah, my story, it goes back about 5 years when my granddaughter was newborn. My daughter had her in a small town in British Columbia. I'm Canadian. And after, when the baby was born, my daughter was a single mom. It wasn't really a great situation with the dad, but I mean, nothing. Usually, it's never perfect when babies come in, and my daughter was doing the best that she could, and then someone called about my daughter, being a danger to her child, and basically social workers showed up in her life. She was totally blindsided, and she was very confused. And then I dropped my life and went out there and helped her, and I was blindsided and I was very confused because they took the baby when she was 2 weeks old. I was right there. They really had no reason to take whatever issues they had with my daughter, they were manageable, but they certainly had no reason to take my newborn grandbaby from me because I have no criminal record. I don't do drugs, no alcohol, nothing. I'm a law-abiding citizen. No danger to my grandchild. So anyway, that's kind of the beginning of our story, is just how traumatized we were and how blindsided we were by the actions of CPS. And our story does have a happy ending because we did eventually get our baby back, but you would think it was easy, and it was anything but. Like, it was really, it was just a very frustrating situation. And for me, working through the trauma and working through the stress of what we went through, it helped to write it out. And eventually, long story short, because this happened 5 years ago, during the COVID lockdowns, I lost my job, and then I had time to write, and I happened to win a publishing prize. And so I wrote the book, Fancy Prisons. So here it is here. It's available on Amazon, and it goes into our story. It goes into the backstory of our friend who was our biggest advocate. Like, she really helped us. I honestly don't know what we would have done without her. And it goes into the systemic issues, with Indigenous children, how they're overrepresented in our the foster care system. I don't go into too much detail because I'm not Indigenous and it's not my story to tell. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of Fancy Prison and our story. Yeah.
So, when initially you wrote the book, would you say you wrote the book to bring awareness to welfare, or did you write it to inspire others
For
on
both.
welfare for
For
both.
both.
Okay.
For both. Yeah. I think that I think any because this is happening far more than we realize, and it's because I think that the social workers, they specifically target poor, marginalized people who might not know how to fight. They might not have the resources, specifically the financial resources, to get a lawyer. So they're specifically being targeted, and they made a mistake with my daughter because I think they thought she was just this, you know, poor, isolated girl who would be easily exploited. They did not realize that no, actually, she's got a mother who's quite supportive and realizes that nobody's perfect. People make mistakes, and mistakes are manageable. But the ramifications of taking her child would affect her for the rest of her life, but they could not seem to reconcile that. They just felt quite justified and quite arrogant in going ahead and doing what they did. And I was just, like I said, I was blindsided. I was quite outraged when I realized that this is how she was being treated, and we were like guilty criminals, and we had to prove our innocence, and there was just no due diligence or no due
I
process at
get it.
all. Yeah,
I
yeah.
get it.
No, I'm sure
Um,
you do. I'm
I
sure it's
get it from
something.
both ends because I had family members who DFATs did take custody of, and the amount of things that DFATs make parents do to get their kids back when they're actually fit parents is ridiculous.
Mhm,
And the amount of kids who die due to the system not taking them or doing welfare checks is ridiculous. You have more unfit moms who deep fats get calls for all the time that don't check on them, but it seems that it's a lot of cracks. And then you have the moms
mhm,
who are good moms, their kids get taken, and they want you to jump. You got to ask how high to get your kid
mhm,
back. And
mhm,
then the amount of money you put into them classes and trainings to get your kid back. And then the judge got to make the last say so. I know that very personally. So I don't have any kids in defense. I just had two family members, and I just remember it. I remember that very well. And then me having an autistic son, I understand a lot more than what you're saying. I fully understand what you're saying. So my
mhm.
next question, you already asked that question, so I'm not gonna ask that one. So I know you was nominated for a prize and you did an award. So my question is, once you was already nominated and you won the award for the book, what made like how did you stay focused to write that book?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. I don't think
Thank you.
anyone's ever, yeah, no one's ever asked me that before. So I'm going to share something very specific I did because I was naturally high, for lack of a better word, for quite a while. And then, yeah, so I had to like focus on how to write the book. And what I did was I made a sketch. Like I found that when I called up friends or whatever, family, to phone and let them know, hey, look at, I've got this, I won this prize, and now I have this catalyst, this motivation to write the book. I found that I was very energized when I would share that good fortune. And so what I did was I started to schedule one call per week so that rather than call everyone all at once and then I'm exhausted by the end of the week, I started to schedule one call a week of sharing my news with just one of my circle of friends and family. And that way, over time, I could sort of tap into that energy that I felt when I was sharing. So every time I told the story again about winning the prize, it was like I was just renewed with that energy, if that makes any sense. So after about 2 or 3 months, I continued with this, one person a week sharing the news with, and my book was pretty much half written by that time because it took about 6 months to write the first draft. So does that make any sense? But that's a very good question. Yeah. Oh, I'm on mute. Sorry, did I
It was
hit
me.
something? Oh,
I'm so
okay.
sorry. I understand. 6 months. I've been working on this novel about sisterhood for months, and it's not hard to write a novel. Or like it's not. It's easy to write children books. That's easy. Like that's one day, but a novel that takes time. So
Hmm.
my next question for you is: when you decided to write this book about your experience with the welfare system, how did your daughter take it? Did your daughter was your daughter supportive? Was she not supportive?
She she doesn't have the same need that I do to write. In fact, she's not academic at all. My daughter, whereas I was a straight A student in school, my daughter was anything but like, and so it helped her indirectly because I wrote the story from my perspective, but of course there were certain um, things that happened to us that I wanted her perspective on it. Um, for example, that moment when they took the 2 week old baby, and it was very traumatic. Her recollection of that was different than mine from and I go into that in the book, but it was me in that exercise of writing the book that sort of opened up the conversation. So she was supportive. I don't know if she quite, like I said, quite understood my need to write the book, but she she gets it. And then if anything, she might be a little irritated with herself that she can't do that as well, like she can't write a book like
She
I
can write
do.
a book. No, she can
But
write a book,
yeah, she just, I guess she doesn't really feel like she has the skill or whatever, or if she wrote a book it would be from a different perspective, which is fine. Like
which is
I
fine.
Yeah, I
She can hire a ghostwriter.
mhm.
That's the thing that exists. Um, what is one lesson you have learned on this journey?
Oh, one lesson I've learned on this journey, that it's better, I think, sometimes when you are blindsided by something, or quite something happens and you're quite shocked by it, not to react. I think one lesson I've learned is that rather than being reactive and freaking out, it's just better to be calm and just wait and see. Because in the situation, the reason why I say that is that in this situation with CPS, your reaction, which is usually a very human reaction to what they do to you, is used against you. So, and it's the hardest thing to do when you're in
And you
those
are right.
situations. Yeah, but yeah, that's definitely one thing I've learned is that, and I was always kind of a sort of laid back person anyway, but even more so now. It's like, yeah, just really be careful not to react at all, and just keep your poker face on,
I love that.
remain really calm. Yeah,
I'm
because
gonna
they.
tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why I love that, because I've been working on not overthinking and not overreacting. And I want to say that
Mhm,
has been the hardest thing for me, to not overreact to certain
mhm,
things that I feel emotionally triggered to.
mhm,
Like it's so many things I can give you examples of. But when I'm emotionally triggered, I overreact. I've been trying to work on how I look at things from other people's point of view, and okay, that makes sense. Let
mhm,
me think about it from their point of view, and then
mhm,
let me come back to my point of view and let me figure it out. So the not overreacting thing
mhm.
speaks volumes to me personally.
Yeah. And I think it helps our children when they witness you being calmer about it, because children, they pick up so much on our stress cues and our trauma. So if we feel trauma, then they feel trauma. So it's really important as parents to to try to be, and I do say try because we're human too, but to to try to be very calm. And with situations with CPS, it like trust me, it's easier said than done. So
So, my next question is, what do you do when this whole situation was happening? Your granddaughter was taken at 2 weeks old. What was you doing to decompress? Like, you're stressed. I'm not sure if you was depressed. Like, what was you doing to decompress?
yeah, that's a good question. I probably not. Probably not enough. Like I was just really, it was hell. Like it was, I wouldn't have. I honestly, I wouldn't have survived if they had managed to successfully take my granddaughter and permanently keep her in foster care. I wouldn't be alive today because that level of stress is not sustainable. And I'm approaching 60 years old. I think that that level of stress at some point would have affected my heart, or some part of my, it would have manifested somehow in a physical ailment that, I just I don't think I would have survived. I don't know how I could have helped my daughter with it because I was just so blindsided, and I was just so out of my element and so confused as to what the heck was going on.
I mean, I can only imagine if my 2 week old baby was just taken
Mm.
by DFATs. In Georgia, in Atlanta, it's called DFATs. It's not called whatever you called it. Here, it's
Mm-hmm.
called DFATs. So I can
Mm-hmm.
only imagine the emotions she was feeling. I'm pretty sure that was her first baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you
It
guys,
it
like
was, yeah.
that sounds stressful in itself. So now that you wrote the book, do you now call yourself an advocate against um welfare or stuff like that?
Yeah, I I think I'd rather than be sort of anti CPS, I'm pro family because I think that they do so much to make parents feel like they're going to be the shittiest parents on the face of this earth. And I'm more like the cheerleader at the side going, no, you're doing great. No, you've got this. Okay, parenting is a skill and it can be learned. So if you go take that baby away from them, how the heck are they going to learn? I mean, when we had our babies, we didn't like snap our fingers and become instant parents. It takes time, and it's a skill that's learned over time. And as long as you have the best intentions at heart, and as long as you love your babies, then being a parent and learning the skills to be a parent and want to be the best person that you can be, it just comes naturally.
I want to say it come naturally to most people. I want to say being a good parent does not unfortunately come natural to everyone because
Mhm.
sometimes we become a parent based on what we saw growing up
Yeah.
or things that we think are good parents. And we may be suffering from childhood trauma that we haven't addressed. We may be, it's so many things when factoring when you're a big parent. And no parent is perfect. Even if you go the gentle parent route, nobody is perfect.
Hmm.
um, do you guys have any questions for her before I can get to my next questions?
Yeah.
If you guys don't have any questions for her, we're gonna go to a quick commercial break to give us time to stop talking, and we'll be back in just a moment. Just give me 1 second, you guys. We'll be right back. All right, you guys, we're back. We're getting right into this conversation. If you have any questions about her book, Fancy Prison is not about prison. In my opinion, the book fancy use the word fancy prison to catch people attention because most people gonna pick up the book think it's about prison, but it's actually about what happened when her granddaughter was taken when she was 2 weeks
Yeah.
old.
I
That's the
explained
prison.
Yeah, I explained the term in the book.
Hmm.
It was something that my daughter dubbed actually. But I just wanted to go back to what you were talking about before, Crystal, that
Hmm.
yeah, parenting, like we might not have had very good role models when we were growing up, but you can, when you become a parent, you get a fresh start, and that's what I was referring
Hmm.
to, that you can learn parenting skills. So you have, like you mentioned, the trauma. You have to sort of do some work on yourself, and you have to try to heal and address and heal from the trauma that you may have suffered as a child. But then in dealing with that, and you can learn parenting skills and the structure that children need and the routine that children need. So that's all I meant about that, is that yes, I realize that not everyone had great role models, but it can be learned,
No,
you know. Yeah.
I feel like it can be learned, but when it comes to trauma, sometimes people don't realize that they are going through trauma until they're triggered. Like
Hmm.
me personally, it's certain things in a romantic relationship that triggers me, and I know that's trauma. And in order to know your trauma, you have to be triggered, in my
Hmm.
opinion. And then that's when you're like, okay, I need to work on this. This right here, I pinpointed. This right here triggered me, so I need to address this, or I need to address my inner child. Like
Hmm.
it's certain things that I didn't get to do as a child, so I like to address her still, that little girl inside of me, and let her
Hmm.
know everything will be okay. So everything go back to this doing the work,
Hmm.
honestly, to get through your trauma. And no, we're
Hmm.
not doctors. We're just talking from our personal experiences on how to address your trauma and how to heal your personal trauma. And don't look at it as a race. Like I need to be healed by next year.
Yeah.
No, it's healing is a journey. And
Yeah.
speaking of journeys, what are some things you have changed since starting your journey?
Um, some things in my life, you mean, or just since writing my
So,
book?
yes, like it can be
Yeah.
about your life or your new passion, which your passion is now is your anti CPS. So, which is for us in Georgia DFAS.
Yeah.
So, it can be a lot. You can take that question a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think I'm just keeping doing what I'm doing, is that I'm just very uh, passionate about advocating for children. So not so much um, going against CPS, but maybe contributing more to, okay, taking children isn't always the solution. So it shouldn't always be the go-to. Shouldn't we be a little more focused on prevention, and not blowing small manageable mistakes out of proportion? Because how does that serve the child? It doesn't serve the child if you're stressing the parent out beyond all reason. And so yeah, just I'm more secure, I think, in how strongly I feel about um, how unjust it is, and how you have to give people a chance. You can't just dismiss them like pieces of garbage. They're human beings, and they deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. Each and every person, we're all equal under God. So I guess,
I agree with that.
yeah, I guess my journey has made me a better Christian, to tell you the truth. Yeah, because I do thank God in the outcome that we had. But I think part of a lot of Christianity is really coming from a place of love and compassion.
I agree with that, but
Hmm.
also forgiveness is
Mm.
what makes
Hmm.
you also a better person, a better
Hmm.
person that believe in God.
Hmm.
Forgiving somebody is also very it sounds easy, but it's super hard to do. Is forgive
Hmm.
somebody sometime. Or
Yeah.
so my next
Yeah.
question is, I'm sorry, I'm right here. Will it ever go
Yeah.
away? What has, will it ever go away? What happens if I did nothing? Example, you didn't go to therapy, don't talk about it. And in your case, didn't write about it. The question is right here.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I don't have my glasses on. If I did nothing, yeah, that's a good question. I'm really glad I wrote the book. Like, yeah, but so that is a good question. If I
Thank
hadn't
you.
have been able to have an outlet for it, think I don't think I would have been able to close the chapter to that and sort of define myself a little bit better.
Mhm.
And as having been a victim of this system, but then now being able to be in a position to help others. And I'm going to use the example. I just want to refer to something you were saying like 5 minutes ago about, like, one of the reactions I got after my book came out was from someone I knew, and she read my book and my writing really connected with her. And she told me she just bawled and bawled and bawled, cried her eyes out. And she shared with me that when she was young, she had been in the foster care system. And I did not know any of this about this person at all. But it kind of would explain like some of the challenges she has right now, maybe with drugs and alcohol. But anyway, obviously, I don't want to really reveal her identity. But it made me think since then that a lot of children who go into the foster care system for whatever reason and they're stigmatized, they grow up into the world, they age out of care is what we call it here in Canada. um, but it's okay, I think, to cry and let it go. And even if you have to grieve the loss of your childhood, I think children, if you were a victim of the system, it wasn't your fault. I think as adults, it's our job to take care of their children until they're old enough to take care of themselves. So if you were denied that as a child, if you were denied having responsible parents or responsible adults to take care of you until you were old enough, it's okay to cry and grieve that loss and move on, because I think if you get stuck in that trauma over and over and over again, you can't grow from it, you can't let it go, and you can't move on in your life, if that makes any sense. Again, I'm not a doctor, that's just sort of my feeling, I think, of how I wanted my book to connect with perhaps, you know, this girl maybe representing other foster kids who might have felt that way, like I to tell them it's okay to cry, like there's like that's good. You have to have that kind of emotional release.
I think you answered that question perfectly in your way and in your
Hmm.
words.
Hmm.
But before we close out, my question to you is, how do my viewers, how can they support your book? Where can they buy it? I think you have a question for, here's a question for you.
Oh.
What is the relationship between you and your daughter today?
Oh, yeah, it's great. We get my daughter is a single mom, and she lives not far from us at all. And every weekend now, my granddaughter is 5 years old, so she's just started school, and we get her every single weekend. So we give my daughter a break, so that, because she, like I said, she's a single mom, so we get her every weekend. She stays with us every Saturday night, and my daughter has allowed me to take her child to church with me every Sunday, so she has some exposure to, Christian beliefs and that sort of thing. So that's good. I mean, my daughter and I, we don't always get along because we're, obviously we're two different people, and we're both kind of type A personalities. So perhaps we bicker a bit too much because we each want our own way, but we are mutually in love with this child. So that she definitely is our love interest. And I think as she grows up, I can tell my daughter certain stories that she doesn't remember. It's like, oh yeah, when you were this age, you did da 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 da. And so, it's a little bit of a learning experience for my daughter too, because we've shared some laughs over some of the mischievous things she did growing up. So yeah, it's a good relationship. Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to know y'all still have a great relationship. Before I ask my final question, you guys, do anybody in the audience my roommates. Do you guys have any questions? Okay. I ask because sometimes trauma can bring people apart, just as it bring them together. That's awesome to hear, and I agree
Yeah,
that it's awesome to hear.
yeah, yeah. And that, I think that trauma for sure, if if that trauma if that trauma had not been addressed and acknowledged, we, like, again, I don't know how I would have been able to help my daughter. But one of the main things I think that that we learn, or I've learned, is that healing from trauma involves connectedness. It involves, so for me to heal with my daughter was, from that trauma, was because we were able to reconnect with each other in a grandmother mother baby kind of situation. So it was that intergenerational connectedness that we were able to heal from that trauma.
You have one more question, I believe. Let me get to it. It said you're definitely a badass and a great mom. I love it.
Thanks, Ruby. read read the book, and I go into more detail, okay, on that. But yeah, I love that.
You know what? I want to say she's one of my biggest supporters. She's been watching me since 2020. She is awesome. She always interact with the guests. I love it. And because of that, I am going to send you a gift. You know what I'm talking to. This is not for all my viewers. I am on Amazon. Oh, that's another thing, you guys. Don't forget to download us on Amazon App Store. It's free. You can watch us on your Fire Stick. You can watch on your Amazon Fire TV, your Amazon Fire tablet. You can watch us, and if you're watching, you should be more supportive. And I might get you a gift too. Just might. You have to be here live though. You said yes, yes. I'm gonna DM you. But you guys, that is the end of my show. But before I get to the end, we gotta know, where can we get her book? Where can you guys buy it? If you're catching the replay, we gotta know, like, Tina, where can we buy this book?
Well, you've been mentioning Amazon, so might as well go with that. So the best thing to do is just Google Fancy Prison by Tina Fumo, but be specific and put my name in there. You can see it at the bottom, right? Tina Fumo is my last name. Because if you just Google Fancy Prison, you're gonna end up with all of these, high class places where white collar criminals serve out, their time. That's not what my book is about. It's about the child welfare system. And if you Google it, then it will come back to podcasts like this. It will automatically go to the Amazon link. So I think in the States it's Amazon.com. But in Canada, it's Amazon.ca. Or if you have listeners from around the world, it just if you Google Fancy Prison by Tina Fumo, it will just direct them to their respective Amazon link for their country, and social media links if any of your viewers have more questions for me, so they can connect with me on social media.
That's great. Actually, you guys, if you Google fancy pants, no fancy, I don't know why I said fancy pants. Fancy prison.
That was Tina Facebook, I think.
I know. I was like, why is it fancy pants? Fancy prison book. Her book will pop up. It's the only thing. It's the first thing pop up. If you type fancy prison book, it'll be that will come up, you guys. It say truly has inspired us. I'm so happy that Miss Tina has inspired you guys. Her story was very interesting to me. When I say interesting, I mean it was powerful. So I felt like it needed to be shared, because me sharing my platform with guests who are not famous is important. Guests who need their voice heard is important. Most people tune in to podcasts that deal with people that have millions and millions of followers and subscribers. That is not my thing. Now, if I'm ever blessed to interview somebody with that many followers, that's amazing. But that's not my focus. But anyway, you guys, next week I will be talking about herpes. I have 2 herpes advocates, and they have 200 plus 1,000 subscribers. I just went on rant, and they have a whole bunch of followers. But their topic is so important. They're talking about the stigma on herpes, and that's important. Why can we not talk about that? Why do when we talk about sex, it's a taboo topic? So I'm talking about it next week, and I'm super excited to have everybody come back or tune in. I'm your host, Crystal J, and this is my co-host. You can say your name is Tina.
Oh, my name's Tina Fumo, and I wrote the book Fancy Prison, calling BS on the child welfare industry.
Yes. And you guys, I actually created a link for her, you guys. Let me pull it up. She already told us about her book, but if you need to screenshot this right here, you can, because that's her book, Fancy Prison, Calling BS on the Child Welfare Industry. Let me say it again for people who's watching on Amazon, YouTube, or you're listening. Fancy Prison, Calling BS on the child welfare industry. But you guys, I hope you guys check out her book or leave her a review. Even if you get to download the Kindle version for free, you can still write her a free review. That is something that us authors need, is reviews. Reviews are very important. I hope you guys understand reviews are important for authors, especially us self-published authors, because we don't have millions of dollars behind us pushing our books. So, like I said, I'm your host, Crystal J. You guys have a great night. Bye, you guys. And thank you for coming on my platform so much.
Crystal to the